Help us to see you more clearly, to love you more dearly, to follow you more nearly, day by day. Amen. Please be seated. I want to share with you all a time when I made a colossal mistake. Now, I know many of you probably think that Stephen Balke, he was quite the miscreant as a young adult. But this time I really messed up. Some of you may know, I worked for a Whole Foods Market for a while. Everybody knows Whole Foods Market, right? Okay. I worked for Whole Foods Market for a while and was doing really well there. Was being given my first position in management. And it was at a Whole Foods Market, several towns over. I was going to go to this new store and help it shape up, help right the ship, as it were. So I got to the new Whole Foods, my new Whole Foods, and on the day that I had gathered there, had my team of people gather around me, and I told them, "Never fear, I have arrived. I'm going to completely turn your worlds upside down on you and change everything." They were not excited. They did not find that reassuring and exciting. In fact, some of them thought they kind of resented that a little bit, or a lot. And my tenure there as manager was very brief. I tell you that story because it reminds me I think of Jesus walking into the synagogue with all of the scribes and the leaders of the temple. And Jesus walking in, reading the scroll, telling everybody that their world is about to be completely turned upside down. And then he sits down and says, "That day has come today." And I imagine the same degree of resentment from some of the people there. Maybe they weren't, maybe some were excited about it, right? But for a lot of them, Jesus was basically telling them that he was going to completely turn their world upside down on them, and it was not going to play well with everyone. In fact, this story may be the earliest story that leads to that long road that leads to the cross for Jesus. But that is the story of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. In the Gospel of Luke particularly, we hear a story about a Jesus that sets about taking the high and making them low, taking the low and making them high. Those who are the most powerful, and he challenges their authority. Those who have no power in the world, and reaching out and empowering them. Those who speak too much, and he puts them in their place. And those who have not been given voice in this world, and he gives them a voice. That's what Jesus does in the Gospel of Luke. I think it's notable that this is different than the story we read about Jesus in the Gospel of Mark all the last year. Last year we were reading the Gospel of Mark, and it was very much a story of this world is sinful and broken, and Jesus has come to save us from this sinful and broken world, right? In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is coming in, not to just save us from the world, but to change the world. To turn it upside down and make it more the world that God wants it to be, which is a way, in its own way, of saving us. The other thing that Jesus does in the Gospel of Luke that's a little different than in Mark is one thing that happens in Luke is Jesus wants us to be a part of the story too, very overtly. Notice what Jesus does is he draws people in the Gospel of Luke to be a part of changing the world. In the Gospel of Mark, remember we talked about Jesus being that superhero in the Gospel of Mark. He swoops in to save the day. He gathers disciples around him, but makes it really clear in the Gospel of Mark that Jesus doesn't need us to save the world. Jesus is going to die for us and save the world. Right? But in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is very clear. I want you to play a part in changing this world. I want you to play a part in making things right. And he goes out and he finds a couple of fishermen and he says, "Come, be a part of this with me." He goes out and he finds a few fishermen over here and he says, I'm going to be changing this world radically, and I want you to be a part of it too. A few years, in my own story, a few years later, I was given another opportunity, a second opportunity in a management position. This time at Eastern Michigan University, right? I had a little team of people in the academic affairs department, and again, I was starting to sort of mixing things up and changing. But I gathered them around me, my team, and I said, you know what? I need your help. We have the opportunity to make a difference. We have the opportunity to change some lives for the better here. But I need us to do it together as a team. I will be there to teach you and to lead you, to inspire you. I will be there to comfort you when you need to be comforted, challenge you when you need to be challenged. I'll be there to celebrate with you when it's time to celebrate, and I'll have your back. But I need you to have my back too. This is something that will only work if we do it together. You see how that feels a little different? That feels a little different than me swooping and saying, I'm going to change everything on you, right? Different. And so Jesus, in the Gospel of Luke, we're going to be hearing all year long. We're going to be hearing all year long about a Jesus who, yes, has come into this world and called for radical change. Starting with him opening up that scroll in Isaiah and saying big changes are coming. But we're going to be hearing all year long in the Gospel of Luke about how Jesus is going to get people to come along on the journey with him. That's a story for us too. I'm very excited to be able to say this is a story where Jesus is reading the prophecy of Isaiah here for us. To say we have a role to play in giving sight to the blind. We have a role to play. We celebrated last Sunday, for those of you who were here, we celebrated last Sunday all of the things we do in ministry in 2018. And we celebrated all the things we're going to get to do in 2019 together. All the ways in which we're going to be able to go out and be about healing and serving and celebrating with each other and growing closer with each other in fellowship. We talked about some new things we're going to be doing. We're talked about being more intentional about engaging in mental health care in our community around us. Reaching out at our neighbors across the street and in the neighborhoods around us, growing deeper into fellowship. We talked about growing and building our relationship with our children and our families over at our school. All the things that we're going to do in 2019 with each other. We are acting out the story that Jesus did with his disciples all those many years ago when he opened up the scroll and he said, big changes are coming. And they start today. So let us celebrate. Let us give thanks for Jesus. Let us give thanks for Jesus who read from the scroll and said, big changes are coming. They start today. And with our help, with us together as people, as the disciples of Christ, we get to gather together and we get to be about watching this world become the world that God knows it can be and wants it to be. So thank you.